Wake up with Rich or play catch up all day. This is News Radio WRVA.
All right, either you wake up with us or people are going to be talking about things you're like, I didn't know that. Wake up with Richmond's Morning News or play catch up all day. Hi, everybody. It's Rich. Thanks for joining us on this Friday. Text line. Pretty hot and heavy today, Super Dave. With people chiming in, if you could bring back one thing from the 80s, if Doc Brown shows up, because there's a kind of a push from, I guess, the millennials and Gen Z saying, you know, my mom and dad had it a lot better than I did. It's true. Think about this. How many kids do you know that they're on Ritalin, they sit in their rooms all day, they're on their screens all day, they do nothing but sit there and they're just in their own little room, their own little cocoon, they have no face-to-face, they don't want to drive, they don't want a car, they don't want to ride their bike outside, they don't go out, they don't have really friends, they have virtual friends, and they wonder why they're so depressed. And now they're looking back like, you know what? My mom and dad had it pretty good. So they're looking for that touchstone of why Gen X seems to be so well adjusted. Can you believe that? That, you know, hey, I'm just pretty happy sitting out there in my backyard, grilling a steak, drinking a beer. And why does my mom still look at my dad that way? They're all trying to grasp at something. So if you could bring something back from the 80s, what would it be? One thing, person, song, movie, TV show. What's the one thing you'd bring back from the 80s? Answer at facebook.com/newsradiowrva, or you can send a text message in on the James River Air text line, 833-804-1140, 833-804-1140. All right, 7:06 this morning. I saw this story, and it just infuriates me, and I want to bring this up because I'm sure you're going to have something to say about it as well, Richmond. So the governor, when she went over in the General Assembly building and she blasts the president, oh, the president, blah, 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 and Glenn Young, blah, 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 blah. Okay, listen, you're the governor. You're in office now. It is August. This is your administration. You're the leader now, okay? Youngkin left you a big surplus. Donald Trump is Donald Trump. You're supposed to lead the Commonwealth, and blaming all the shortcomings of the Commonwealth on those two isn't leadership. I said the same thing about President Trump when he would complain all the time about Joe Biden. Joe Biden, hey, listen, that's why we elected you to fix Joe Biden's messes. Let's move forward. Stop looking backwards. Say the same thing to the governor. But now they're boasting that we're $1 billion ahead of where we should be, where we were anticipating to be with tax revenue. Yay! No, not yay. Boo! Here's why. When you take the tax revenue out of my paycheck, or whatever else you take it, you get to have that money interest-free. Think about this. You take those tax dollars from us in some of these taxes that you have, or income tax, all the rest of this, and then you overproject. You're taking our money tax-free. Now, I might get a refund somewhere down the line with the IRS or something like that, but when government, and this is government in general, when you take our money and we get that refund, it's not like, yay, I got a refund. No, it should be, boo, you've taken money that didn't belong to you. You held on to it for a year, and then you give it back to me, and it's interest-free. I gave you an interest-free loan. Be a better steward of my tax money. But here's the part where it just strikes of people that don't respect the taxpayers. So you're celebrating I got an extra $1 billion ahead. That means that $1 billion came out of our pockets. That $1 billion did not just show up out of the blue. You didn't go to the money tree outside the back of the General Assembly building and just put a bucket under there and shake it, and $1 billion fell out. No, that's money that you've taken away from us for taxes. It's not something you should celebrate that you are $1 billion ahead, because that's $1 billion you took for the people. It's our money. But when you treat it like, oh, look, it's tax revenue. No, Stop calling it tax revenue. Talk about what it really is. It's my money that I earned that you took. Now, again, I don't mind paying taxes, but please be a good steward of my money. And this is a case where I can tell you they're not. Richmonder.org. It's nonpartisan. I read it, but it's a nonpartisan paper, website. Graham Muma has an article in there about the gerrymandering. So remember the gerrymandering vote, the redistricting vote? Remember the governor signed a multi-million-dollar order that put forward this, and we're going to pay back all the municipalities because, again, our elections take forever with the early voting. We all voted. It barely won. Millions of dollars wasted because the whole thing was a sham because the General Assembly didn't even follow their own rules. And a Tazewell judge told us that from the get-go before the vote, before Spanberger said, yeah, let's go ahead and have this election. Tazewell judge said, no, this thing is illegal. You broke our rules. You can't do it this way. And by the way, not one person has said this. I haven't seen one person say this, write this, or talk about this. The Tazewell judge was right the entire time. The Tazewell judge that was beaten up, punched, oh, he's a hack, he's a political hack, it was biased, blah, 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 blah. His ruling stood up to judicial review all the way to the Supreme Court of the United States, and that Tazewell judge that ruled in the first place was correct all along. People owe him a big apology. But here's the thing that just now completely infuriates me, and it should infuriate you. I'm going to quote from Muma here. Richmond officials had to spend almost $375,000 in local tax dollars to run an unplanned election that didn't count. The pot of state money set aside to help local election offices fund the April 21st redistricting referendum fell short of covering Richmond's actual cost, according to city documents. City officials spent a little more than $500,000 to run the redistricting vote, which ultimately didn't matter because the Supreme Court of the United States ruled the election was invalid and overturned the results. The $5 million that the governor set aside from the General Assembly that was allocated, I'm putting that part in for the governor, allocated to help pay for the redistricting referendum, Richmond received $129,606, according to the Virginia Department of Elections. That's significantly less than the $504,437 Richmond spent on staffing, equipment, and other expenses that tied to the unusually timed spring election. It left the city election office having to pick up a tab of $3,740,831. So the governor, remember, she wrote that, oh, yeah, let's give him $5 million. We'll have this special election, which was under judicial review the entire time, Governor Spanberger. So then you went ahead with this election that was ultimately struck down because the Tazewell judge was right and all the rest of you were wrong. Now, City of Richmond, which, by the way, wants to raise your sales tax 1%, is in the hole almost $375,000 because the governor didn't cover the cost of what it was to have this sham election. Richmond's not alone. Cities and counties across Virginia have run into the election madness of unresolved legal challenges, whether the votes are counting or not, and they have similar local expenses and weren't fully reimbursed by the state. So let me just make sure I have this all correct for the General Assembly, okay? You said that you're going to let all the municipalities vote on their own whether they're going to raise our sales tax or not. That was your job. You abandoned that. You abdicated your responsibility for overseeing the request for additional sales tax. All the rest of these counties are hurting for money, so of course they're going to come ask us for 1%. and sales tax increase. And at the same time, just to show us how responsible you are with our money, the governor signs a bill, General Assembly approves it, $5 million for a sham election that was under judicial review, and you don't even pay the counties back. And now that same county that's, in the hole, and they want to raise our taxes, you now leave them with more than $250,000, $375,000 here in Richmond. They're on the hook for your sham election. Good job, General Assembly. Good job, Governor Spanberger. This is outrageous. And again, this General Assembly out of control. This governor says one thing, does another. And to do this and then stick everybody for the bill, congratulations, folks. Here in Richmond, you're stuck $375,000 for their boondoggle of trying to fix the election. If you don't want to throw all these bums out, then you're not awake, and I need to check to see if you have a pulse. You want to comment? 833-804-1140, 833-804-1140. All right, we've got plenty to get to this morning on the program. There's more going on with Sophie Cunningham. I'm going to tell you why I hate the Little League World Series, and I've got a bunch more coming up here on News Radio WRVA. Let me just remind everybody that today's program